The first thing that broke wasn't my heart. It was the coffee mug in my hand. The sharp crack echoed across the kitchen floor as white pieces scattered around my feet. Hot coffee soaked into my socks, but I barely noticed. Olivia stood only a few steps away. "You should be more careful." Her voice sounded calm, almost gentle. Then another voice slipped into my mind. Sometimes I wonder if Ryan would still laugh after something like this. My breathing stopped. I stared at her. She frowned. "What?" The second voice disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. Nothing made sense. Maybe I hadn't slept enough. Maybe the pain medicine from the hospital was still affecting me. I bent down and picked up the broken pieces with shaking fingers. "I'm fine." She nodded once and walked toward the dining room without another word. The room felt colder after she left. Things hadn't always been like this. When we first got married, Olivia filled every room with laughter. She stole fries from my plate. She sent me silly messages during work. She used to wait by the window whenever I came home. Somewhere along the way, those little moments quietly disappeared. Our conversations became shorter. Our dinners became quieter. Our smiles became polite instead of real. Still, I kept telling myself that marriage wasn't supposed to feel exciting every day. People changed. Life became busy. Love needed patience. At least that was the story I repeated whenever the silence became too loud. 3 days earlier, everything had looked normal. I was driving home after meeting a client. Rain covered the windshield. A truck suddenly crossed the intersection. Brakes screamed. Metal crashed against metal. The world spun once before darkness swallowed everything. When I finally opened my eyes, bright hospital lights burned above me. Machines beeped beside the bed. A doctor smiled. "You're lucky. A mild concussion. A few bruises. Nothing permanent. Nothing permanent." Those words almost made me laugh now. Olivia rushed into the room a few minutes later. Her eyes looked tired. She grabbed my hand tightly. "You scared me." I smiled weakly. "I'm sorry." She leaned closer and gently touched my forehead. Then it happened. A quiet whisper echoed inside my head. "Thank God he's okay. I can't lose him like this." Relief washed over me. Maybe everything was fine after all. Maybe our marriage still had hope. The strange voice faded before I could think about it. I convinced myself I had imagined the whole thing. The doctors discharged me the next afternoon. Olivia drove us home. The radio played softly, but neither of us spoke much. She kept both hands on the steering wheel. I watched the city pass by through the window. Something felt different, almost like the world had become slightly louder. Not louder outside, louder inside. Our house looked exactly the same. Fresh flowers stood on the kitchen counter. My favorite blanket waited on the couch. Olivia had obviously prepared everything before bringing me home. She helped me sit down. "Need anything?" "I'm okay." "You should rest." She smiled again. The smile looked perfect. Practiced. Almost automatic. She stepped close enough to straighten the collar of my shirt. Then the impossible happened. I wish Ryan had been the one sitting here. Every muscle inside my body froze. The sentence wasn't spoken aloud. Her lips never moved. She continued fixing my collar with gentle hands. "You'll recover quickly." Another whisper arrived. Ryan always looked stronger after injuries. I stared at her face. Nothing. Only quiet concern. No guilt. No hesitation. Just the same soft expression. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. "Olivia." She tilted her head. "What is it?" The strange voice vanished again. I swallowed hard. "Nothing." She gave me another small smile. "I'll make dinner." As soon as she walked away, my hands started shaking. No, this couldn't be real. People couldn't hear thoughts. I wasn't living inside some fantasy movie. The concussion had to be causing hallucinations. That explanation made far more sense. Even if it terrified me, dinner smelled wonderful. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, fresh bread. My favorite meal. She placed the plate in front of me. "I thought this would make you feel better." Maybe cooking his favorite meal will stop me from feeling guilty. The fork slipped from my fingers. It landed against the plate with a loud clang. Olivia blinked. "Ethan?" "I'm just tired." She reached for my hand. Warm fingers wrapped around mine. Don't think about Ryan. A second later, stop it. Stop comparing them. I slowly pulled my hand away. Every bite suddenly tasted like dust. That night, I couldn't sleep. I searched online for concussion symptoms. Headaches, memory problems, blurred vision, mood changes. Nothing about hearing people's private thoughts. I laughed once. A dry, hopeless laugh. Maybe I was losing my mind. The next morning I decided to test it. If the voices were fake, they wouldn't predict anything. If they were real, I didn't want to finish that thought. Olivia walked into the kitchen wearing a light blue sweater. She looked beautiful, exactly like the woman I had fallen in love with. She reached for the coffee machine. Sugar first. Before she moved, I quietly picked up the sugar jar and placed it beside her. She looked surprised. Oh, thanks. A coincidence. It had to be. She opened the refrigerator. We're out of milk. Before she spoke, I answered. I'll buy some later. Her eyebrows lifted. I wasn't even going to ask. My stomach twisted. The whole day became one long experiment. She walked toward the laundry room. I forgot my phone upstairs. 5 seconds later, she turned around. Oh, I left my phone. She stood near the living room window. It's going to rain. I looked outside. The sky was still clear. Less than 2 minutes later, heavy drops hit the glass. Each prediction landed perfectly. Each one stole another piece of my certainty. This wasn't imagination. Whatever had happened after the accident, it had changed me. That evening my phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. Hey brother, heard about the accident. Mind if I stop by tomorrow? Before I could answer, Olivia walked into the room carrying folded towels. You look tired. I'm all right. She smiled. If Ryan comes tomorrow, maybe it'll cheer you up. Her voice sounded warm, supportive, almost loving. Then the whisper returned. Clear, sharp, impossible to ignore. Tomorrow, Ryan is coming over. A tiny pause followed. Then the words that shattered whatever hope I still had. I can't wait to see him. Olivia kissed my forehead, turned off the bedroom light, and slipped under the blanket beside me. Within minutes, her breathing became slow and peaceful. I stayed awake, staring into the darkness. For the first time since our wedding, I was afraid to hear the woman sleeping beside me. Ryan arrived just after noon. The doorbell rang once, and Olivia reached the hallway before I could even stand from the couch. I'll get it. Her voice sounded almost eager. The door opened. There he is. Ryan stepped inside with the same confident smile that had always made people like him. He carried a paper bag in one hand and a bottle of juice in the other. Heard you tried to wrestle a truck. A laugh escaped him. You've always been terrible at picking fights. Normally, I would have laughed too. Today, I simply smiled. Good to see you. He pulled me into a quick hug. You're alive. That's what matters. His words sounded sincere. Then Olivia walked closer. I'm glad you came. He still smiles exactly the same. The voice echoed inside my head. Why does one smile still make my heart race? Every muscle in my body locked. Ryan handed her the paper bag. I remembered those chocolate cookies you like. Her fingers brushed against his for barely a second. Thanks. He never forgets the little things. A tiny pause. Ethan always has to remind himself. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Ryan dropped onto the sofa like he belonged there. So, when are you getting back to work? The doctor wants me to rest another week. Good. He leaned back comfortably. You've worked too hard anyway. Olivia disappeared into the kitchen. I'll make coffee. Ryan likes 2 sugars. Before she even reached the cabinet, she grabbed 2 sugar packets. Exactly 2. My stomach twisted. Coffee steamed between us. Ryan talked about work, new projects, funny clients, old college memories. Most of the stories included both of them. You remember that camping trip? Olivia smiled before answering. How could I forget? You carried me across the river. Ryan laughed. And you almost pushed me in afterward. Another smile. Another memory. Those were the happiest days. My cup stayed untouched. They weren't flirting. Not openly. Nothing inappropriate happened. Anyone watching us would have seen 3 old friends catching up. Only I could hear everything hidden underneath. Ryan stood near the bookshelf. You still kept this picture? He picked up an old framed photo from college. The 3 of us stood shoulder to shoulder. Back then, I thought nothing could ever come between us. Olivia stepped beside him. We looked so young. I almost chose him back then. The words hit harder than I expected. Maybe I should have. Ryan never heard those thoughts. Neither did anyone else. Only me. Only the fool standing across the room, pretending everything was normal. By evening, Ryan finally stood. I should head home. Olivia walked him to the door. Drive safely. You too. They smiled one last time. Then he left. The front door clicked shut. The house became quiet again. Too quiet. Dinner sat on the table nearly 20 minutes later. Roasted vegetables, rice, grilled chicken. Everything looked perfect. Everything tasted cold. Olivia pushed food around her plate without eating much. You've barely touched anything. I'm not very hungry. Ryan looked tired today. She reached for her glass. I wonder if he's sleeping enough. I stared at my own plate. She wasn't thinking about the husband sitting across from her. She was wondering whether another man had enough sleep. That night, I couldn't stop replaying every thought I'd heard. Maybe I was only hearing random memories. Maybe she loved me now. Maybe old feelings meant nothing. I wanted excuses. Anything that could keep my marriage alive. Instead of sleeping, I opened an old storage box inside the closet. Photo albums, birthday cards, movie tickets, little pieces of our life together. At first, everything looked normal. Then I noticed something strange. Every group picture with Ryan had tiny fingerprints across the edges. Those photos had been touched far more often than the others. The next morning, I quietly searched through our shared cloud albums. Thousands of pictures, vacations, family dinners, holiday parties. Then I found a hidden folder. Not locked, just buried deep enough that nobody would notice. Most pictures included all three of us. Yet every image seemed carefully cropped. Ryan stayed in the center. I stood near the edge. Sometimes half my shoulder disappeared completely. Coincidence? Maybe. But after yesterday, nothing felt accidental anymore. My phone buzzed. Sophia, Ryan's younger sister. Coffee? Haven't seen you in months. I answered before thinking too much. Sure. She arrived at a small cafe across town wearing a gray jacket and a tired smile. You look awful. I've had a rough week. I figure. She stirred her coffee slowly. You've been unusually quiet. I'm just recovering. Those words sounded weak even to me. Sophia watched me for several seconds. Then her expression changed. Something happened. I stayed silent. She leaned forward. Does this have anything to do with Olivia or my brother? The question landed with terrifying accuracy. My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. What makes you think that? She sighed. Because I've seen this before. A long breath escaped her. I hoped I was wrong. Rain tapped softly against the cafe window. Sophia kept watching the street instead of me. I warned Ryan years ago. My heartbeat stumbled. What do you mean? He enjoyed the attention. She rubbed her forehead. Olivia always admired him. I thought they were just friends. So did everyone else. Another painful pause. But admiration can become emotional dependence if nobody sets boundaries. I couldn't move. Sophia continued quietly. I told him to stop encouraging it. He laughed. The words barely reached my ears. He thought it was harmless. My mouth had gone dry. Did anything happen between them? She shook her head immediately. No. The answer came without hesitation. I never saw cheating. She lowered her eyes. But emotional lines, her fingers traced circles around the coffee cup. They blurred those lines more times than they should have. I drove home with the windows down. Cold air rushed through the car. None of it cleared my head. Maybe physical betrayal would have been easier. At least it had a clear answer. This was years of invisible comparisons. Years of wondering whether she had chosen the wrong man. Years of smiling beside me, while part of her heart waited somewhere else. That evening, Olivia stood in the kitchen making tea. Soft music played from her phone. She looked peaceful, comfortable, as if nothing inside our marriage had changed. I stopped a few steps behind her. She didn't notice me. The kettle whistled. Steam curled into the air. Then her thoughts reached me again. Ryan looked disappointed today. A pause. Maybe he's unhappy too. She closed her eyes. Another whisper followed. Slower. Sharper. crueler than anything before. If Ethan disappeared, time itself seemed to stop. The final words arrived like a knife sliding between my ribs. Maybe I could finally be happy. The mug slipped from my hand. It shattered across the kitchen floor. Olivia spun around, startled by the noise. What happened? I stared at the broken pieces scattered between us. For the first time since hearing her hidden thoughts, I didn't wonder whether the voices were real. I wondered how long I had been living beside a woman whose heart had never truly come home. The broken mug stayed in the trash. I didn't replace it. Every time I walked past the kitchen, I remembered the sound it made when it hit the floor. It reminded me of something important. Some things could be cleaned up. They could never become whole again. Olivia stood by the stove, flipping pancakes. She glanced over her shoulder. You've been quiet these past few days. I've had a lot on my mind. Her hand slowed for a moment. He's still upset about the accident. A tiny pause followed. Maybe I should plan a weekend together. I nodded politely. Sounds nice. No excitement. No questions. No chasing. She frowned as if she expected more. After breakfast, I drove across town. The address belonged to Emma Reed. Her office sat inside an old brick building overlooking a small park. The gold letters on the glass door read, Family Law. I stood outside for almost a full minute. Walking inside felt like admitting my marriage had already reached the edge. My hand finally pushed the door open. Emma greeted me with a calm smile. No pressure today. She motioned toward the chair across from her desk. We're only talking. I sat down slowly. I don't even know if divorce is the right word yet. That's all right. She folded her hands together. Tell me why you're here. The question stayed in the room. Simple. Heavy. I stared through the office window before answering. I think my wife stopped choosing me a long time ago. Emma didn't interrupt. She let the silence breathe. Sometimes that hurt more than any question. By the time I finished explaining our distant marriage, she slid a folder toward me. These are your legal options. I didn't reach for it immediately. I still love her. I believe you. Her voice remained gentle. But love doesn't cancel reality. Another quiet moment passed. You don't have to file today. I know. You only need to protect yourself while you decide. That sentence stayed with me long after I left her office. Protect yourself. I couldn't remember the last time I had done that. The following week became strangely peaceful. I opened a personal bank account, updated important passwords, made copies of financial records, collected house documents. Everything happened quietly. No dramatic confrontations. No secret revenge. Just careful preparation. Every signature felt like I was slowly building a bridge away from the life I had once dreamed of. At home, Olivia noticed the change before she understood it. You've stopped reminding me to eat lunch. I figured you already know when you're hungry. A confused smile crossed her face. You always text me around noon. I've been busy. Why doesn't he seem worried anymore? She waited for me to explain. I didn't. The conversation ended there. Days earlier, I would have asked how work went, whether she slept well, if she wanted to watch a movie together. Now I answered kindly. Then I returned to whatever I was doing. Not to punish her, to protect the little peace I had managed to find. One evening she walked into my office carrying 2 cups of tea. I made your favorite. Thank you. I accepted the cup. She remained standing. You've been spending more time in here. I've been organizing paperwork. Talk to me. Her fingers tightened around the mug. Please don't keep shutting me out. The thought surprised me, not because it sounded loving, because it arrived only after I stopped chasing her. Ryan called that weekend. His name flashed across my phone. I answered after a long pause. Hey. His voice sounded unusually careful. How are you feeling? Better. Good. Another pause stretched between us. I've been busy lately. I noticed. I probably won't be stopping by much. That's fine. He cleared his throat. Take care of yourself. You too. The call ended. Short, awkward, almost guilty. Later that night, Olivia checked her phone 3 times during dinner. No messages arrived. Why hasn't Ryan answered? She unlocked the screen again. Nothing. Did I do something wrong? I quietly continued eating. The food had already gone cold. Neither of us mentioned it. The following afternoon, I walked into the living room carrying a small toolbox. Our wedding photograph still hung above the fireplace. We both looked so happy, young, certain. The man in that picture believed love alone could fix anything. I climbed onto a chair, unscrewed the frame, carefully lowered it into my hands. Olivia entered just as I wrapped it in newspaper. "What are you doing?" "I'm putting it away." Her eyes widened. "Why?" "It doesn't match the room anymore." That wasn't the real reason, but it wasn't a lie either. She stood frozen. Why would he remove it? I carried the photograph upstairs without another word. That night she knocked softly on the bedroom door. "You've been acting differently." I closed the book resting on my lap. "I have. Did I do something?" Many answers rushed into my head. Too many. Instead, I studied the wedding ring on my finger. It's not one moment. She waited. It's a lot of small ones. Confusion slowly replaced frustration. "I don't understand." "I know." Her lips parted as if another question wanted to escape. Nothing came. She quietly left the room. Behind the closed door, her thoughts echoed. "I'm losing him." The next morning, Emma emailed several draft documents for me to review. I printed them, marked a few notes, placed everything inside a plain brown folder. My plan was simple. Lock it inside my desk before Olivia came home. Life had different plans. The front door opened earlier than expected. "Ethan?" "I'm upstairs." Her footsteps echoed through the hallway. I reached for the folder. Too late. A sudden breeze from the open window scattered several pages across the floor. One sheet landed near the bedroom entrance, just as Olivia appeared. She bent down automatically. "I'll help." My heart sank. Her eyes stopped on the first page. Petition for dissolution of marriage. The color drained from her face. She stared at the words without blinking. "This." Her voice almost disappeared. "What is this?" I slowly took the paper from her trembling hand. "We need to talk." "No." She stepped backward. Another page slipped from the folder. Then another. They spread across the wooden floor like pieces of a future neither of us wanted to see. She reached toward me. Not toward the papers. Toward my hand. Warm fingers barely brushed mine. Her lips trembled. "Ethan." The whisper inside my mind crashed over everything else. "No." Her breathing became uneven. "No. He's actually leaving me." The divorce papers stayed on the bedroom floor long after neither of us could find another word. Olivia never reached for them again. She only stood there, her hands hanging at her sides, as if one wrong movement would make everything disappear for good. I gathered each page carefully. No anger, no dramatic speech, just quiet hands picking up the future we had broken together. The next morning, breakfast waited on the table. Pancakes, fresh coffee, orange juice, everything I loved. She watched me from the kitchen doorway. "I thought we could eat together." "Thank you." I pulled out a chair, finished one pancake, drank half the coffee, then carried my plate to the sink. Usually I would have stayed. Usually I would have tried to fix the silence. This time, I walked upstairs. Behind me, her thoughts trembled. "Please don't leave every conversation like this." She started coming home earlier, cooking more often, texting me during the day. Tiny efforts appeared everywhere. "Did you take your medicine? Drive safely. Dinner will be ready at 7. Months ago, those messages would have filled me with hope. Now they only reminded me of one painful truth. She had started fighting for our marriage only after realizing it could end. That evening her phone rang while we were eating. Ryan's name lit up the screen. She stared at it. Her fingers hovered above the display. Then she pressed decline. A second later she blocked the number. She slowly placed the phone face down. "I don't want him in my life anymore." I nodded once. "That's your decision." She waited for relief, for gratitude, for something. Inside my head another whisper arrived. "If I cut Ryan off, maybe Ethan will stay." The words hurt because they answered the question I had been afraid to ask. She still wasn't trying to understand my pain. She was trying to stop losing me. 2 days later Ryan called from another number. I answered. "Ethan." His voice sounded tired. "We need to talk." "I think we do." He suggested meeting at a quiet restaurant outside town. I agreed. Not because I wanted answers anymore. Because I wanted the truth to stop hiding. Ryan was already waiting when I arrived. 2 untouched cups of coffee sat between us. He looked older than I remembered. Not in years. In guilt. I know what this looks like. I remained standing for a moment before taking the chair across from him. Then save us both some time. He rubbed both hands across his face. I never planned any of this. No. A bitter smile crossed my lips. You enjoyed being the man she couldn't forget. His eyes dropped to the table. I won't lie. Those 4 words carried more weight than anything else he could have chosen. It felt good. The confession settled between us. I liked knowing someone admired me that much. He swallowed hard. It fed my ego. My jaw tightened. But I never wanted her to leave you. A hollow laugh escaped me. You didn't have to ask her to leave. He couldn't meet my eyes. She was already halfway gone. I leaned back slowly. Did you ever love her? Ryan answered without hesitation. No. The word landed like a hammer. I loved the attention. His shoulders slumped. There's a difference. I closed my eyes for a brief moment. Years. Years of comparing myself to him. Years of wondering what he had that I didn't. In the end, he hadn't wanted my wife. He had only enjoyed being wanted. When I returned home, Olivia rushed into the hallway. You met him. I did. What happened? I studied her face. Hope. Fear. Confusion. Everything mixed together. He told me the truth. Her breathing became uneven. What truth? He never wanted a future with you. The color disappeared from her face. No. He liked being admired. Every sentence became harder to say. He admitted it. She took one shaky step backward. You're lying. I wish I was. Her phone appeared in her hand almost immediately. She called Ryan. No answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. A third time. Nothing. Her fingers trembled as another message failed to send. Blocked. He had blocked her. She slowly lowered the phone. The fantasy she had protected for years collapsed without making a sound. That night she sat alone in the living room. The lights stayed off. Rain tapped softly against the windows. I walked downstairs for a glass of water. She didn't notice me until I reached the kitchen. Ethan. Her voice cracked. I wasted everything. I remained quiet. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just exhausted. I thought I understood my own heart. She covered her face. I didn't. The whisper inside my mind sounded nothing like the cold thoughts I had heard before. What have I done? The next afternoon, I visited my father. Daniel welcomed me with the same calm smile he had carried through most of my life. He poured 2 cups of tea before either of us spoke. You look lighter. I don't feel lighter. He nodded slowly. Not yet. I stared into the steam rising from the cup. I keep thinking about revenge. What would that change? I don't know. He smiled sadly. Closure isn't something you take from another person. His hand rested gently on the table. It's something you stop waiting for. I let those words settle inside me. Maybe I didn't need to destroy anyone. Life had already begun doing that on its own. The hospital bracelet still rested inside my bedside drawer. I found it later that evening while organizing old papers. A simple strip of plastic. The date of the accident. My name. The room number. That accident had changed everything. Without it, I might have spent years begging for love that had never fully belonged to me. Instead, I had been forced to see what was already there. Olivia entered quietly. She noticed the bracelet in my hand. You kept it. It reminds me of the day everything changed. She nodded weakly. I wish I could go back. So do I. Hope briefly returned to her eyes. Then I continued. I'd choose myself much sooner. The hope disappeared again. A few days later, Emma placed the final documents in front of me. You've reviewed everything. I have. Are you ready? I looked down at the last empty line. My signature belonged there. So did the ending of my marriage. The pen felt heavier than it should have. Still, my hand remained steady. Ink touched paper. One signature. Then another. Emma quietly closed the folder. It's done. When I returned home, Olivia stood beside the fireplace. The wall above it remained empty. The wedding photograph had never gone back. I slipped my wedding ring from my finger. For several seconds it rested in my palm. 7 years. Countless promises. A lifetime I had imagined growing old inside. The The small circle of gold suddenly felt much heavier than metal should. I placed it gently beside the signed divorce papers on the dining table. Olivia reached forward. Not far enough to stop me. Not brave enough to touch my hand. Her lips parted, but no words came. This time I didn't wait for them. I turned toward the front door, and without looking back, I walked away. 6 months changed more than the 7 years before them. The apartment I rented was smaller than the house I had left behind. There was no expensive furniture, no large dining room, no framed wedding photographs waiting on the walls. Just a quiet place that finally felt honest. Every object inside belonged to the life I was building instead of the one I kept trying to save. Morning sunlight slipped through the curtains. Coffee brewed in the kitchen. The calendar on the wall held meetings, project deadlines, and dinner plans with my father. Not once did it remind me to chase someone who had already stopped choosing me. That alone felt like progress. My phone vibrated while I packed my laptop. Another message. Olivia. I didn't open it. The notification disappeared beneath dozens of others carrying the same name. There were apologies, birthday wishes, questions, photos of old memories. One simple line appeared again and again. Can we please talk? The messages stayed unread. Not because I wanted revenge, because every answer had already been spoken months ago. Work slowly became enjoyable again. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. Stopped wondering whether someone missed me. Stopped measuring my worth through another person's attention. Clients noticed the difference. Friends noticed it too. Even my father smiled more whenever we met. You finally sleep. He stirred sugar into his coffee. I can see it in your face. I guess I do. You stopped carrying a weight that never belonged to you. His words stayed with me long after breakfast ended. Emma became part of my new routine. Sometimes we met because paperwork still needed attention. Sometimes we simply shared coffee after work. She never tried to fill the empty place Olivia had left behind. She respected it. That made her easy to trust. You seem different. She closed the file resting on her desk. In a good way? In a peaceful way. A smile reached my face before I noticed it. I think I'm finally learning the difference. Between what? Being alone and being abandoned. She nodded. One is chosen. The other is survived. As I walked back to my car, a strange thought crossed my mind. I hadn't heard anyone's hidden thoughts all morning. Not Emma's. Not the receptionist's. Not the client who had shaken my hand an hour earlier. Nothing. The silence felt unusual. Not empty. Comfortable. That evening I deliberately tested it. The grocery store was crowded. People hurried between shelves. Children laughed. Phones rang. Conversations blended together. Months ago, I would have expected secret whispers inside my head. There were none. Only ordinary voices. Only real words. I stood beside the fruit section for several minutes before quietly laughing to myself. Maybe the strange gift had disappeared. Or maybe I simply no longer needed it. Another month passed. Life kept moving. One afternoon, Sophia called. You deserve to know? Her voice sounded careful. What happened? My brother resigned. I leaned against the office window. He left the company. A long pause followed. He also admitted everything to our parents. I closed my eyes. How is he? Lonely. She sighed. Turns out admiration doesn't stay very long once people see who you really are. What about Olivia? Another pause. They haven't spoken since the day he blocked her. I thanked her before ending the call. Not because the news made me happy, because it reminded me that choices always leave footprints. A week later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Inside rested one photograph. Our wedding day. The picture I had taken down months earlier. A short note lay beneath it. I finally understand why you smiled in every picture. You were loving me with your whole heart. I was only borrowing yours while chasing someone else. I'm sorry. There was no request to come back. No promise that things would be different. Only truth. Late. Painfully late. I folded the letter. Placed it inside a drawer. Some memories deserved respect. Not another chance. A few days later, she called from an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it. Something inside me answered anyway. Ethan. Her voice sounded softer than I remembered. I won't keep you long. I'm listening. Could you meet me once? I glanced through the office window. Rain drifted across the city. One last conversation. After several seconds, I quietly agreed. We met in the small park where Emma's office overlooked the river. Autumn leaves covered the walking path. Olivia stood near a wooden bench. She looked thinner, tired. The confidence she once carried had been replaced by quiet humility. Thank you for coming. I slipped both hands into my coat pockets. You wanted to talk? She nodded. I don't expect anything. A weak smile crossed her face. I lost the right to expect. The wind carried a few leaves between us. She watched them instead of me. I blamed our marriage on routine. Another breath. Then I blamed work. She rubbed her hands together to keep them warm. I blamed everything except myself. I remained silent. Not because I wanted to punish her, because she deserved the space to finish. When you stopped chasing me, her voice trembled. I finally saw how much you had been carrying alone. A tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I kept waiting for you to fight harder. Another painful pause. I never realized you were the only one fighting. Those words settled quietly between us. I forgive you. Her head lifted so quickly that hope flickered across her face. Before it could grow, I gently continued. But forgiveness isn't the same as going back. The hope faded. Not into anger. Into acceptance. She slowly nodded. I know. I truly hope you find peace. You too. A small smile appeared through her tears. I think you already have. We stood there a little longer. No dramatic goodbye. No desperate promises. No reaching for hands that no longer belonged together. She turned first, walked toward the parking lot. Each step carried the weight of choices that could never be undone. I watched until she disappeared beyond the trees. Without thinking, I waited. Months earlier, I would have heard her hidden thoughts. I listened. Nothing. Only the wind moving through the branches. Only birds somewhere above the river. Only ordinary life, continuing without secrets. A slow smile found its way across my face. The strange ability was gone. Maybe it had never been a gift. Maybe it had only stayed long enough to show me the truth I refused to see. I turned toward the opposite path. My future wasn't waiting behind me anymore. It was waiting ahead. And as I walked into the quiet afternoon, I realized I no longer needed to know what Olivia felt. I already knew what I deserved.